Good evening, my good friends. We are continuing to study the Chatzar Yosef, this book right here, written by yours truly, with the help of God only. We are studying chapter 11, section 2. We are studying a very famous story about Onkelos, the famous Onkelos, the convert to Judaism, the Roman nephew to Titus, who was the person who destroyed the second temple. We just finished section 1 about how he called Titus through witchcraft to ask him, his uncle, whether he should convert to Judaism. And it was a very interesting conversation which we learned a lot from over there. Please see those videos. Scroll back up, look it up. It's going to have 11:1, which means chapter 11, section 1. Now this is 11:2, section 2. The continuation of that story. Of course, that story appears in Masechet Gittin in the Gemara, Daf Nun Vav, Amud Bet, towards the bottom, very bottom, and it goes on to the next page. The story continues. After he got his answer from Titus, Titus said, don't become a Jew, you should be their enemy instead, you'll become world famous, and Onkelos didn't like that answer. He went on to the second candidate, as I guess we could say. The second person that he called through necromancy or witchcraft, person who died, he called upon his soul, he called Bil'am. Onkelos then went and raised Bil'am through witchcraft. He said to him, who was Bil'am? Of course, a little background. Bil'am was Allah. There's a whole parasha in the Torah about him in the book of Numbers, book of Bamidbar, how he was a prophet, the greatest prophet that the Gentiles ever had, but he was a very impure, wicked, evil individual. He was very cunning and conniving as well. And there's a very interesting story about him in the Torah. You should look it up over there. At the end of the day, he was married to his donkey. That's right, I didn't stutter. He was married to his donkey. That's what kind of impure life he led. But at the same time, God gave him prophecy and spoke to him in order to keep the balance. The famous question is why? The famous answer is because there had to be balance in the world. There had to be some sort of there had to be a protection for the excuse that the Goyim may have presented to God. The Goyim would have said, listen, God, if you gave us a prophet as good as Moshe Rabbeinu, maybe we would also be holy and righteous and part of your nation, and we would have accepted your Torah, etc., etc. So God says, hey, I did give you a prophet as good as Moshe in some ways, as prophecy-wise. Who was that? That was Bil'am. So that is who he called. Onkelos says to him, he asks him, who is most important in that world where you are now, in the next world? Bil'am says back to him, Israel. They can't deny that fact. Titus also said the same thing. Am Israel is what's important in Olam Haba. Onkelos then asked him, what if I attached myself to them? What if I became a Jew, in other words? Bil'am said to him, you shall not seek their peace nor their good all your days forever. Are those his own words? No. Bil'am quoted a verse from our own Torah. This verse is found in Devarim 23:7. This is what God says in the Torah. Now look at note 1. I'll give you the context of this verse right here on the bottom. The context of the verse is Moshe recalling to the children of Israel the episode of that I was just talking about, of how Bil'am attempted to curse the nation in the wilderness, and how Bil'am then advised Moab to have their women lead the Jewish men astray. Again, we know you have to be a little bit familiar with Tanakh. Open up that story, Parashat Balak, where all that happens. Make a long story short, Bil'am tried to curse the Jewish people. He was hired by another non-Jewish king to do so. He tried several times. Every time he opened his mouth, God put a blessing in his mouth, so he ended up blessing the Jewish people. And then at the end of the day, Bil'am gave advice to Balak that he should take his women, the women of his nation, of Midian and of Moab, to go seduce the Jewish men and make them sin with them, and that's what eventually brought suffering and decrees and judgment upon Jewish people. So Bil'am was a part of that, and 24,000 people, Jewish people, ended up dying as a result of the plague that followed. So Bil'am accomplished that, killing 24,000 Jewish people. So after all this, the Torah says the following: an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the congregation of Hashem. That's one of the mitzvot of the Torah. Torah says you're not allowed to allow these two nations to intermarry with Jews. Meaning, even after they convert, if they're from the nation of Ammon or from the nation of Moab, which by the way are both from Lot, which is last week's parasha. they are not allowed to, and for their own reasons, they're not allowed to enter into the Jewish congregation. They're not allowed to marry into a Jewish woman, even if they converted. Why? The Torah says, because he hired against you Bil'am, son of Beor, of Petor, Aram Naharaim, that's where Bil'am is from, to curse you. That's what Moab, the people of Moab did. They hired Bil'am. But Hashem, your God, refused to listen to Bil'am, and Hashem, your God, transformed the curse into a blessing for you because Hashem, your God, loved you. You shall not seek their peace or their good all your days forever. That's what the Torah says in regards to the people of Moab. And Bil'am now uses that same verse and he answers Onkelos' question with that verse. Don't seek their peace. He's telling Onkelos, don't be peaceful with the Jews. Onkelos said to him, what is the punishment of that man in that world? Who is that man? Again, this is a third person language, but this is the way the Gemara works. He's really talking about the person he's talking to, which is Bil'am. He's asking Bil'am, what is your punishment? How are you suffering in that world? Bil'am said to him, viewer discretion is advised. This is for adult ears. So Bil'am said to him, he is cooked in boiling hot. No. Yes. How do I say it in a nice way?
Still the same way.
He is cooked in boiling hot male bodily fluids, if you know what I'm saying. That's what it says. That's how he's punished every single day.
And why is that, by the way?
Oh, that's a great question. That's what we're going to find out. Why is that? So Rashi has a comment right on that.
Midah, but what midah is this?
Let's see. So Rashi says over here, this was a measure for measure punishment for him, since it was because of his advice that he gave to Balak, the king of Moab, that we just spoke about, that the nation of Israel began levity with the daughters of Moab. What's levity? Please describe for us for our...
Promiscuity?
Yes, promiscuity, basically. Immoral male-female relations. That's what he advised them to do, and that's what they did, and the Jewish men ended up wasting a lot of seed. I'll use the word seed, it's a clean word. So he's in boiling hot seed. That's how he's punished every single day in that world. Questions, Sha'arei Chatzar. Question number 1. Why was Bil'am's answer unique in that it was a quote from a verse from the Torah, rather than an original answer that he could have thought of himself? He just quoted a verse from the Torah to answer Onkelos. You shall not seek their peace. And he took it out of context too, because it's not talking about anything else. It's talking about the people of Moab. But here, he's using it against the Jewish people. He's telling Onkelos, you should behave this way, not seek their peace with the Jewish people. Why did he answer with the verse whose context is directed at himself? Look at note number 4. Oh, we just explained note number 1. Never mind. So I have to go back to note number 1. I didn't finish it. Let's finish note number 1, talking about the context of that verse that he quoted. Thus, the context of verse 7 is that Moshe is telling the children of Israel never to seek the peace of the Moabites because of their horrible plot against Israel, like we just explained, in which Bil'am played a major role. He gave them the advice to have the girls seduce them, as we said. The last chapter of Kiddushin, Masech Kiddushin, expounds these verses to mean that if a Moabite or Ammonite Gentile converts to Judaism, which he definitely could, he and his descendants may not marry a proper Jewess, a Jewish woman, non-convert, right? A Jewish woman came from Yaakov. Or for how long? For 10 generations they're not allowed. So 10 generations, meaning what that means is once they get mixed in, once we lose track of where they came from, that's exactly what it means. It doesn't mean numerically 10. It just means at a point where we lost track, we don't know where they came from, that they used to be Ammonite converts. At that point, they can marry into the Jewish nation. Yes. Okay. The next question we have is, besides the simple explanation that Rashi provides for his punishment, is there a deeper significance to the design of Bil'am's punishment in Gehinam, being soaked in boiling hot semen every day? Let's see. Commentary. Says the Maharsha. Says the Maharsha, Bil'am did not go so far as to advise Onkelos to wage war against Israel, as Titus did. There was the previous one. He merely advised against joining forces with them. Do not seek peace with them. So Titus said outright, make war with them. Bil'am is saying, don't make peace with them. The reason Bil'am answered Onkelos' question with the verse, you shall not seek their peace nor their good, is as follows. The Midrash says, this Midrash appears in the Likutei Shimoni, in Torah, Remez 168 over there, also in Sanhedrin 105. The Midrash says that Bil'am is the essence of Lavan. And upon Lavan's pursuit of Yaakov, right? Remember who Lavan? Lavan was Yaakov's father-in-law. He caused a lot of trouble to Yaakov, as we'll see in the coming weeks in the Parashiyot. When Lavan was pursuing Yaakov, running after him when Yaakov took his family and ran away, Hashem warned Lavan in a dream. Hashem came to Lavan in a dream. It's the second time Hashem had to come to a wicked person in a dream to protect the tzaddik. First was Avimelech. He came to protect Sarah and Abraham. And now the second time he came to Lavan in a dream to protect Yaakov from him.
But he also came to Bil'am.
So this is chronological.
Chronologically, I'm saying.
Okay.
Right? And Bil'am, that was prophecy. I guess you call it a dream.
He
Yeah.
came to him in a dream?
Sure. It was a dream-like prophecy, sure. So Hashem warned Lavan in a dream. He said, beware, lest you speak with Yaakov, tov vara, whether good or evil. That's the language Hashem told Lavan. He warned them, don't speak with him good, don't speak with him evil. Just don't speak with him. Don't bother him. Why was he worried about, why was he warned against speaking good with Yaakov? What's wrong with that? Why did God say, don't speak with him good and speak with evil? What's wrong with speaking good? Evil, I understand. Don't speak with him evil. Don't say bad things to him. But what's wrong with the good things? Why can't you say nice things about Yaakov? So, because the reason is, because a wicked man like Lavan, a wicked man's good is actually a righteous man's evil. So whatever Lavan thinks is good is actually very evil in Yaakov's world. Because Yaakov was a pure tzaddik. That's the extreme dichotomy. Thus, Bil'am answered with the verse, you shall not seek their peace nor their good. What's the language? Tovatam al tidrosh. Their good do not pursue. Look at note number 3. What does that mean? We'll try to explain this. Perhaps this is what the Maharshal means as follows. The Maharsha. Bil'am was telling Onkelos, and Onkelos was the essence of Lavan, remember. I'm sorry, not Onkelos. Bil'am was the essence of Lavan. That's how it should be. Bil'am was, that's what the Midrash says. They were of the same team, so to speak. Lavan, Bil'am, Esav, they're on the same team. So, Bil'am was telling Onkelos that since Onkelos was a wicked man, this should say Lavan. Since Lavan was a wicked man at the time, I'm sorry. I revert back. Bil'am was telling Onkelos that since Onkelos was a wicked man at the time, we can assume that. Why? Because this is before he converted, and he was doing witchcraft of Ov. Ov was the way, the method he used to call upon the spirits of these dead people, and that's prohibited by the Torah. So if someone does that, and it's prohibited very strictly by the Torah. So if you do that, you're considered wicked. So Onkelos did that at the time, and therefore the good that he thought he would be doing by joining the Jews, right? That was the question he was asking. Let me become a Jew. It would actually have been evil according to the Jewish standard, because the Jews are good, and whatever is good, seems good for an evil person is actually bad. That's the point. Therefore, his efforts in converting would have been futile. That's the hint. Maharsha trying to explain that Bil'am was saying to him, don't seek their good, because their good is beyond you, because whatever you think is good is actually evil, because right now you're evil because you're doing all of which is witchcraft. That's a little confusing, but that's the point here. Next page. The reason Bil'am was punished with boiling a hot seed is because he would commit bestiality with this she-donkey, as is mentioned in Azara 4a. As we said, that was his wife. His she-donkey. At least it was a female, I guess I could say. I don't know. Nowadays, I have to find a silver lining. Okay. Next one. Yavet says over here. The Yavetz, Yaakov Emden, huge chacham. He says, how did Bil'am expect Onkelos to take his advice about not joining Israel after he himself admitted that Israel is considered important in the next world? Remember, Onkelos asked him two questions. First question he asked him is, who is important over there? So far everybody answered him, Israel is important. So then the next question, the follow-up question is, okay, should I join them? And so far they've both been saying no in their own way. So it doesn't make sense. They're contradicting themselves. If that's what's important, why shouldn't I be doing that? So it says over here, it seems that Bil'am was catering to the side of carelessness in people and persuading Onkelos that it would be better to enjoy the pleasures of this world and not worry about the next world, rather than join Israel, who suffers in this world, only to receive their great reward later on in the next world. It's a now mentality. Enjoy what you have now. Don't think about the future. Spend everything now. Bil'am's quote of the Torah, that verse that we keep saying, to answer Onkelos' question that says, "You shall not," he told them, "You shall not seek their peace nor their good," is a sort of mockery of the Torah. He's mocking the Torah by quoting the Torah in his answer. Essentially, Bil'am was saying to Onkelos, just as they are commanded not to seek the good of Moab and their allies, right? Bil'am is the ally of Moab. Bil'am was on their team. Moab hired Bil'am, remember, to do their bidding. Just like the Torah says you should not seek their good, so too Bil'am is saying, I advise you not to seek the peace of the Jews. Treat them the same way their Torah tells them to treat others. The Torah says don't seek the peace with X nation, which is actually Bil'am's allies. So it says also, you shouldn't, it says back to him, Bil'am says back to Onkelos, don't seek peace with them. Moreover, Bil'am meant to Onkelos that if he would convert, he would fail to reach the Jews' lofty level, resulting in him inheriting a double portion of punishment in Gehinam, versus if he had just remained a Gentile. Why? Because a Jew, he has much more expectations. He has the potentiality to reach great Olam Haba if he does everything he's supposed to do. But if he doesn't do everything he's supposed to do, he gets punished even more so. So he's saying, why are you making? It's very simple. More risk, more reward. That's how it goes. So he's telling him, don't do it. Right now you're a goy, which has less mitzvot, but you have less suffering potentiality because of that as well. Less reward, less risk. Don't enter that realm. Okay. Now the Maharal, he explains the Gemara the following way. He says, regarding Bil'am's punishment, seminal emissions have a status of spiritual impurity. And by definition, that which is spiritually impure is distant from God. The epitome of spiritual impurity and truth, that's God, right? God is ultimate purity and truth. So the more impure something is, the further it is from God, by definition. For this reason, Bil'am's answer, when he says, you shall not seek their peace, it's the furthest from the truth of all the three answers. What's the three answers? We'll see in the next section, there's a third person that Onkelos calls to ask the same question. The fact that it was a boiling liquid of seed, it hints at the concept of Gehinam, since the suffering accrued there is referred to as fire, as it says in Masechet Chagigah 27a, the fire of Gehinam. So it fits metaphorically in with it. Again, this is all metaphoric. It's not actual physical liquid and seed and boiling things there. It's all metaphoric explanations for spiritual concepts that we cannot fathom right now because we live in a physical limited world. Right? These are borrowed words for borrowed concepts in order for us to get some glimpse. Ben Yehoiada, he says over here, the fire of Gehinam for Bil'am was the boiling hot seed. That was his fire of Gehinam. In this way, he received an extra measure of suffering in that he was made repulsive to the other dwellers of Gehinam. Other people, his neighbors over there, they didn't want to be near him even over there because he reeked of that. He deserved this because he would waste his own seed with his shin donkey every night, as we said. All right, so that's all the commentaries that we have. Now we have the Chatzar Yosef. It's about 2 pages, and I don't know if we have time today to do more. What do you say? We'll just finish this page, and then we'll stop on the next page. Okay. Chatzar Yosef says the following. The Maharal, first we have to do some housekeeping and go through the commentaries and try to make sense of some things here. The Maharal mentioned that the fact that the seed was boiling hot, it was a reference to the fire of Gehinam. We must inquire the following. On a fundamental level, what is the fire of Gehinam? It must be understood that Chazal are not speaking of a physical fire like we just explained. It's not a physical fire that we experience in this world. Rather, they're only offering an allegorical understanding of the suffering that occurs in the spiritual realm for those who deserve it. Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler, very famous writer on famous Musar concepts, he explains that fire is merely a metaphor that conveys the sheer anguish and remorse that one experiences there, that a person experiences in Gehinam, which is even more painful than physically burning. It's a deep feeling of anguish and remorse and regret of what a person did. Chazal used these metaphors filled with vivid imagery in order to make a lasting impression on us, such as fire. Why? Since even though we are an amalgamation of physical and spiritual aspects, right? The human being is a mixture of physical and spiritual, body and soul. When it comes to making a lasting impression in our minds, it is the physical sensory input, such as sight, sound, and smell, and imagery like that, that is initially most effective in our thought process. We have no intentions to forget our loved ones after they have long gone, right? Yet the memory fades eventually. And it's the physical pictures of them that keep them alive. Physical things that we keep have the strongest impression on us so far in this world right now, while we're here in this world. For this reason, Chazal used the images of fire to advocate our imagination and make a lasting impression in our minds to develop a genuine fear of going to that place. Look at note number 2. He writes further that Chazal portray this, which teachings such as another example is Masechet Berachot 57a. It says, fire is 1/60th of Gehinam, meaning that the experience of being burnt by fire in this world is a mere inkling, is 1/60th of the intensity of the mental pain that will be experienced in that place of Gehinam. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the grandfather of Rabbi Dessler, that's his grandfather, he prescribed that a Jew should meditate on the intensive pain one would suffer from putting his finger in a fire for 1 second. Then multiply that to a duration of 12 months. 12 months is the longest time that a person can be in Gehinam, according to Masechet Rosh Hashanah 17a. And then you should take that thought and multiply that by a factor of 60. Imagine the intense pain. That will surely inspire one to do everything in one's power to avoid going there.
Do you recommend putting your finger in fire for a second?
If you want to do no, you're not allowed to actually hurt yourself. Just imagine the pain. I'm sure you've felt something hot before in your life, right? For example, the hot eggs from the oswo on Shabbat, right? When you peel them, just hold it like that. That's hot. It's really hot. Hold that for a second. Now that multiplied by 600, and then imagine where Gehinam is. Okay. Further over here. It seems another potent reason that Chazal used metaphors of boiling hot fire to portray the suffering incurred in Gehinam is as follows. When something of great value was burned completely to ash, there is no hope whatsoever to take that ash and revert it back to its original form. It's gone. Similarly, once life in the physical world ends, an individual completely loses any chances of changing his status in the spiritual realm. How you get there, you're done. There's nothing more you can do. There's nothing more you can change to increase your level. You, personally. Your children, they can do things to push you up further. Kaddish, other mitzvot, other things as well. Whatever you left in this world, maybe you wrote books, maybe you funded yeshivot, maybe whatever you left in this world that continues functioning and running after you die, those can push you further. But you personally cannot do anymore once you're gone. So all opportunities to climb the ladder are utterly lost at that point. There is, I should... not all opportunities. I mean, like I just said, there are ways, if you left things in this world as the investment that keep you going, like your children and things like that, that can push you further. There is no reverting back into the same body to try to be better and fix regrettable errors that a person made in his life, right? That's for sure true. This is part of the deep and agonizing remorse felt by the inmates of Gehinam. That's what it means, right? So just like fire brings the item to ash and it can never go back, also in Gehinam you realize that you can never go back and fix what you never fixed. That's the point. And that's the deep feeling of remorse, of endless remorse that you can never, unless God gives you a chance to do reincarnation, which is a whole topic on its own, which we're not talking about now.
People cannot even experience that remorse, or once you're in that world of truth, there's no other way but to experience that remorse.
So the remorse is going to be felt, and there's two general options. Either a person will suffer through Gehinam, and that will atone for whatever he did wrong, and therefore he won't have to feel remorse anymore. Or, because it's erased. Once it's atoned, it's erased. Or, then you have to merit that to earn Gehinam. If a person doesn't earn that, then he has to, then there's worse places than Gehinam where he's just flung across the world and suffers forever. It's called Kafakela. Or another option is he might be sent back to reincarnation and to try to fix it that way.
So let me ask the question.
Yes.
Is it possible for a person to not even initially feel that remorse? You know, there's like some people who have no value for it, like they just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll just kill anybody, like they just don't care.
Right. You're saying do they get a conscience once they get there?
Yes.
That's a good question. I would have to, if you cornered me and forced me to answer, I would say yes, because
That's the word.
based on what we said before, it's the world of truth. Now, here's the thing. We're going to talk about this further in this chapter. Mentally, they will know and be revealed to the truth that there's a God, that Am Yisrael is God's chosen nation, Torah is true, morality is real, you're supposed to do good things and avoid bad things. And just by virtue of the fact of being created in the image of God, right? The Maharal alluded to this before in previous sections. By virtue of the fact of being created in the image of God, you have that goodness in you. Every person has goodness in him. It's just his job to reveal it and use it in his life. If he didn't, it doesn't disappear. It's there, and that part of him will for sure feel the remorse once he gets there. So I would say yes. It's a part of the protocol there. It's a part of the function, the suffering. Right? You can, by virtue of the fact of being human. Right? This is things we tell our kids all the time. Every person has good in them, and it's true. It's true. That good is the image of God. Because you have the image of God, God is all good. So that potentiality for good is inside you, and that's what
That part will feel the remorse.
that part will definitely feel the remorse. Yes. Now, does that mean that when a Rasha dies and goes to heaven, he becomes a tzaddik all of a sudden over there? Not so simple. We'll see that further. B'ezrat Hashem. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen.